Dr. R. Sugaraj Samuel. He is working as a professor in physics at New College, Chennai. He is also training students for IIT JEE, AIEEE and BIT SAT. He has more than 16 years experience in both teaching and research. He has published a book titled The Complete Handbook of Bachelor of Electronic Science Practicals, which is prescribed for the syllabus for BSc Electronic Science by University of Madras. He has presented papers in several national and international conferences and has also conducted many training programs and workshops to motivate energetic students. His research areas are ultrasonic, polymers, crystal growth and photovoltaic systems. He is experienced in both regular classroom teaching and online teaching as well.
Welcome to UGC lecture series in BSc Honours in Physics. We have been discussing about the topics related to electrostatics and magnetism. In electrostatics, we are discussing about the concepts related to Gauss law and its applications. Let us see the session outline for today's lecture. In this lecture, we are going to learn about the applications of Gauss law, under which first the electric field due to parallel charged sheets, and then the electric field due to charged spherical shell, and then the concepts related to the excess charge that is given to conductors and insulators. What is the effect of the excess charge on these two types of materials? And then we are going to learn further the application of Gauss law in finding the electric field due to a charged conducting sphere, and again the same for a non-conducting sphere also. So, this is the session outline. We will start with the application of Gauss law. We are going to use Gauss law for finding the electric field due to two parallel charged sheets. There is a prerequisite needed for this. What is the electric field due to one sheet of charge? E is equal to sigma divided by 2 epsilon naught. That is the equation we need to use in finding the electric field due to parallel sheets. How the mathematical formulations are done and how the Gauss law is used for this. Let us have the picture in front of us and then we will go ahead with the discussion. Electric field E due to parallel charged sheets. Let us consider the two charged sheets in front of us like this. They are charged opposite. This is a positive charged sheet, this is a negatively charged sheet. The surface charge density on each is taken as sigma, that is the charge per unit area of the sheet. These two are kept parallel to each other and they are infinitely large, and the distance between them is comparatively less compared to the geometry of this area, geometry of the sheets. We need to start with the Gauss law. We know what is Gauss law, right? The flux is equal to the net charge enclosed by the Gaussian surface divided by epsilon naught. So, it implies that we need to consider Gaussian surface and then go ahead with the calculations. But as far as these two parallel sheets are concerned, we are not going to write the Gauss law and Gaussian surface and use the mathematical expressions. We are going to use the readily available expression which I have just mentioned, the expression for electric field for a sheet of charge. That expression we are going to use. But what about the direction of electric field that is produced by the two parallel sheets? When we consider the directions, we will get some idea to solve this case. So, let us see how the directions are existing due to the two sheets. Have a look at this. First, we are interested in finding the electric field between the two sheets. This is the region between the two sheets. For a region in between the two sheets, we consider a point P1. For a region outside the two sheets, maybe near any one of the sheets, we have taken a point P2. First, we are going to concentrate on the point P1. What is the electric field at this point P1? That is our focus. This point P1 is in between the two charged sheets. One sheet is charged positive, the other sheet is charged negative. We very well know that the electric field comes out from a positive charge and it ends in a negative charge. And here we have the positive and negative charge sheets kept. So, how the electric field will exist between the two charged sheets? See here, I have shown the directions for you. This is the direction of the electric field due to this positive plate. The electric field has to come out, which is marked as E1. This is due to the positive charge, so it is marked as positive. The electric field comes out from the positive plate, and as far as the negative plate is concerned, the electric field has to end in this. So, the electric field is towards the negative plate. These two arrow marks are pertaining to this point P1. Not only this point, it is applicable for all the points. So, look at the direction, this is E2 due to the negative charged plate. Look at the two arrow marks, they are towards the right, towards one direction. That means the electric field, though they are produced by the positive plate and negative plate, direction wise they are additive in nature. So, we have to add the two electric fields because of the same direction and try to get the expression for the electric field between the two sheets. What is the expression for one sheet, the electric field due to one sheet, that we know. So, let us use that and try to get the expression for a region in between the two sheets, and that could be done at a later stage, but right now just for the sake of expression, the electric field in between the two sheets E is equal to E1 plus E2 because these two are added. E1 is due to the positive plate, E2 is due to the negative plate. So, they are added. This addition symbol is very important because they are vectorially added. Now, we will concentrate on the point outside the sheet. In the outside case, what do we have? Let us have a look at the picture once again. I would like to explain it this way. Let us take the point P2. The E1 is again the electric field due to the positive plate only. In continuation to this E1, it is continuously existing to the right because it is coming out from the positive plate. So, in this region also it will continue in the same direction, that is towards the right. And what about the electric field due to the negative plate? The electric field has to end in this negative plate. So, when we consider the two directions, they are opposing each other. Because of the directions are opposite to each other, the electric field is likely to cancel. It is to be taken as a negative. It is E1 minus E2 or E2 minus E1, whatever way we take, no, we will get definitely 0 because the sheets are infinitely large. Shall we have a look at the picture once again? This sheet is very large sheet. The geometry is shown here, very long sheets, infinitely long. This distance between them is negligible, very small. That is why they are additive here, they are cancelling each other here. All these are possible. Now, for the point outside, the electric field is not additive, they are opposing each other. Now, we will go ahead with the expressions. For the case of in between the sheets the electric field is added together, E1 and E2 are added. So, this is due to one sheet, sigma by 2 epsilon naught. This is the already derived expression only. In one of the earlier episodes we have derived this, and this is due to the other sheet. So, we are adding them together, we get the expression for electric field between the two sheets as E is equal to sigma divided by epsilon naught. And as far as the outside the sheets, a point outside the sheets is concerned, the electric field is cancelling each other, because E1 and E2 are same, but they are opposing each other, it becomes 0. So, electric field outside the two parallel sheets is 0, that means the electric field is not there. So, the electric field is existing only in between the two sheets. The same outside is applicable for a point outside, but near the positive plate also, the same way they will get cancelled. So, we have solved the case of electric field due to two parallel charged sheets of infinite size for the region in between the two sheets and for the region outside the sheets. So, these results are very important. This we will be using at a later stage when we want to find out the energy stored between two parallel sheets of charges. So, this expression we will use. So, keep this expression in mind. Now, we will see the other application of Gauss law. For that, we need to consider a Gaussian surface, but what is the distribution? The distribution is a shell, a hollow one on which the charges are kept. So, the distribution itself is in the form of a spherical shell. Here also we need to find out the electric field inside the shell and outside the shell, and of course on the shell also. So, let us move on to the next case of electric field due to a charged shell. We will start our discussion like this. Consider a charged shell of radius capital R. Let Q be the total charge on the surface of the shell, and here the one which is shown as a dark line is the actual shell on which the charges are appearing. Shall we show the charges on this, because it is represented just for the sake of the simplification and diagram, it is understood it has got the charge on the shell like this, the charges are appearing. And there are 2 points, we want to find out the electric field inside and electric field outside. This is again the same shell only, the charges are appearing on the surface. It is hollow inside, nothing is there inside. There are 2 cases, E outside the shell and E inside the shell. So, 2 different formulations are needed for that, but in both the cases we need to write the Gauss law separately and solve the Gauss law expressions separately for the 2 cases, for a point outside the shell and for a point inside the shell. And for on the shell also we can solve with this diagram. Now, we will start with the electric field outside the shell. We have to write the Gauss law and then consider a Gaussian surface and the expression and then solution. The steps you are now familiar with. So, shall we go ahead quickly with the steps? Have a look at the Gaussian surface for a point outside the shell. The point is P here. At this point we want to find out the electric field. The electric field will be coming out because of this charged shell at this point, and this is an imaginary Gaussian surface. So, the elemental surface area ds could be taken for this, and this is the direction of electric field. Because we are considering the Gaussian surface symmetrical with the charged shell, we need not worry about the value of E, because it will be constant at all points on the Gaussian surface. Shall we go ahead with the expressions? For E outside the shell, we have written the Gauss law as usual. the steps are very familiar to us now, because we have to just start with the expression for Gauss law, in which the theta is 0. I have shown the two vectors E and ds, they are in the same direction. So, theta is 0, cos 0 is 1, and the expression E is taken outside the integral because E is constant, and that Q is the total charge enclosed by the Gaussian surface. So, we have got the expression finally simplified. Integral ds is the area of the sphere, which is 4 pi r square, and we simplify that expression as like this: the electric field is equal to 1 divided by 4 pi epsilon naught Q divided by r square. When we have this equation, something comes to our mind, right? This equation is very familiar to us. We have come across the same expression earlier. It remains as the expression for electric field due to a point charge, but here we have not taken a point charge, but we have taken a shell. What is the explanation we have? The shell acts as a concentrated point charge at the center, as far as a point outside the shell. Have a look at the diagram with which I would like to explain. See, for a point outside the shell, the entire shell acts as if it is concentrated here at the center. The entire charge appears to be concentrated here at the center for a point outside. Now, we will move on to the point inside. So, this is the point at which we want to find out. So, consider a Gaussian surface inside the shell of radius small r. Capital R is the radius of this shell, small r is the radius of the Gaussian surface. So, we have taken that Gaussian surface. What is important here? The Gaussian surface does not include any charge. Do you agree to that? Have a look at this diagram. See, it does not include any charge. The charge is outside the Gaussian surface because it is appearing only on the shell, not on the Gaussian surface. Gaussian surface does not include any charge. So, what is the expression we have for the Gauss law? Have a look at this. We have written once again the Gauss law like this, and because there is no net charge included by the Gaussian surface, it is 0. So, whatever way we simplify, we will get a big 0 for the electric field. So, electric field inside the shell is 0, though there is a huge charge distributed on the shell outside, it is 0 inside. To prove this, actually the scientist Michael Faraday, he made a big room inside a metal shell, and he entered inside and made people to charge the shell, the metal sphere, from outside, and he carried a candle and a electroscope to check whether the electric field is existing inside, and he risked his life to prove that there is no electric field inside the shell. After the charge was removed from the sphere, when it was discharged, he came out from the shell unaffected. So, electric field inside the shell is 0, and we have a graph for us to keep this point. This is a graph. The electric field is taken on the y axis, and the distance from the center of the sphere passing through the shell, that is the radius capital R, it is inside the electric field is 0, and on the shell it is maximum, and after that it is inverse squarely decreasing. So, this is the expression for electric field on the surface, because we have written the capital R here. So, what is the conclusion? For a point outside the shell acts as a point charge. On the shell also, for a point on the shell also, it acts as a point charge concentrated at the center, but inside the shell the electric field is 0. Now, typically we want to know, when we electrify something, where the charges will reside. As I have stated in one of the earlier lectures, how do we make a material electrified? If you want to make a material or a body positively charged, we have to remove electrons from the body. So, it becomes dearth of negative charge. The dearth of negative charge is positive. because the material is neutral in the beginning. If it is unaffected, electrically it is neutral. If you remove electrons from it by means of rubbing or by means of induction, if you remove the electrons, it becomes positively charged. And if we give excess charge, the electrons excess to a neutral body, it becomes negatively charged because it has got excess electrons. Whatever way it is, when we say a body which is electrified, either made positive or negative, where the charges will reside? Let us have an explanation for that. In conductors, the excess charges placed on an insulated conductor reside entirely on its outer surface. Excess charge placed sets up an electric field inside the conductor, and this causes them to move to the surface, because in a conductor the charges can freely move. It allows the charges to move. That is the nature of a conductor. So, this was experimentally proved by Benjamin Franklin and other scientists, as I said, Michael Faraday. So, they have proved the excess charge resides only on the surface of a conductor. This is for the case of conductor, that is very important. But what about the case of the insulators or non-conductors? The case is now different, and I think this is the diagram showing how the charges reside on the outer surface. See, we have a hollow conductor and we bring the positive sphere by means of a silk thread and we bring it in contact. As we bring it inside, the charges are getting separated because the charges can move as far as the conductor is concerned. So, near this positive charge, the negative charge is getting accumulated, and because the negative charges are accumulated here, the positive charges, the dearth of negative charge is found to be on the outer surface. Once it is brought in contact, this positive charge neutralizes the negative charge. What is the meaning of neutralization? These electrons get into this positive sphere which is not having sufficient electron. So, once it is neutralized, see, look at the way in which it is made positive. It is made positive. This positive charge appears only on the outer surface because each charge sets the electric field around it. Each charge sets electric field. This electric field influences the other charges move to the outer surface. So, the charge resides only on the outer surface of a conductor. Now, the case of insulator or non-conductor. In non-conductors and insulators, the excess charge remains wherever they are placed in an insulator because the charges cannot move in such insulators. See, here it is depicted here. The charges placed on an insulator, they appear wherever they are placed, whether it is on the surface or inside, if it is a solid material. So, wherever the excess charge is placed, it will remain where it is placed, it cannot move. But in the case of conductor, it is not so. They move to the outer surface because of the electric field set by the individual free charges. So, in conclusion, what we have, the excess charge resides only on the outer surface of a conductor, and for insulator and non-conductors it can exist wherever they are placed. So, with this knowledge we can take up one more application of Gauss law. Let us see what it is. The electric field E due to a charged conducting sphere. On the basis of the excess charges residing on the surface of the conductors, for a conducting sphere, it resides only on the surface of the sphere. Hence, electrically it is like a charged shell. All the results of the charged shell are the same for the charged conducting sphere also. Just now we have seen the case of charged shell. Inside the shell it is 0. So, the same way here also, have a look at this diagram. The charge, it is actually a solid conducting sphere, but the charges reside only on the outer surface. Inside it is 0. I would like to show the Gaussian surfaces for them. Inside, if you consider a Gaussian surface, because at this point we want to find out the electric field, does not enclose any charge. The charge is 0. So, the electric field is 0 inside, and similarly for a point outside, we have to concentrically consider another Gaussian surface. Here the electric field will be existing. So, the results of the shell are same for the case of charged sphere. Now, what about the case of non-conducting sphere? In the case of non-conducting sphere, the charges can reside inside, right, if it is charged. So, in non-conducting sphere, the excess charge can be uniformly distributed throughout the volume of the sphere. Suppose if you have such a uniformly distributed spherical volume of a sphere, then we have to solve it like this. Let us take the volume charge density be rho. The expressions for E are same for a point outside the sphere and on the sphere, since the Gaussian surface encloses the entire charge. We need not sit and solve the case for an outside point of the sphere, because once again the same results we will get, but we are now interested in finding a point inside the charge distribution where the Gaussian surface that we consider would include some charge. So, let us take up that case for our discussion. These are the two expressions for outside, which are very familiar expressions for us. This is for on the surface. These are the expressions which are familiar to us. This is for a point outside the sphere. This is for a point on the sphere. But for a point inside, let us solve it now. For a point inside the sphere, from the constructed Gaussian surface, we come to know that the annular part of the charge does not contribute for flux. This is how the Gaussian surface is considered. The Gaussian surface is a concentric sphere of radius small r. It is considered here like this. This is the annular region. The annular region will not contribute anything. This is the annular region, outer surface and Gaussian. So, this cannot contribute anything. It is the charge that is enclosed by the Gaussian surface, that only will contribute for the flux. We have the Gaussian equation in front of us. This is the Gaussian equation. The Gaussian surface is the concentric sphere considered inside the sphere. So, electric field is constant and this is the elemental area. The angle between E and ds is 0, cos 0 is 1. Because electric field is constant, it is taken outside the integral sign. And we have q dash here. The q dash is the charge enclosed only by the Gaussian surface, which is considered inside the sphere. This is not the total q, it is not the total charge, it is the charge enclosed by the Gaussian surface alone. So, now the formulations are done like this. We have to write an integral ds expression, which is the area of the sphere that we have considered, 4 pi r square, and for this q dash we go for this ratio. For the entire volume the charge is q, then for this small volume what is the value. So, when we do this we finally end up getting this expression. Finally, we have this as the expression for the electric field, which is slightly different from the earlier expressions. We have one r in the numerator and the denominator has got r cube. So, it shows the electric field inside the charge distribution is linear. From the equation we understand that only. Have a look at the equation. We have this r in the numerator, which is linear with respect to this E, because these are all constant terms, the remaining terms are all constant. In conclusion, the electric field inside the charge distribution changes linearly with respect to the distance taken from the center of the sphere. If you have a graph plotted for this, we will get a clear understanding. Shall we have a graph in front of us? E is varying linearly inside the sphere, reaches the maximum at the surface and then decreases inverse squarely. So, this is the linear variation inside the sphere, reaches the maximum on the surface. So, it is taken as r and then it varies inverse squarely like this. So, this is the inverse square variation. So, this graph clearly tells us how the electric field is varying. Hope you have understood the case of the spherical charge distribution and the electric field produced by such a distribution for points inside and outside and even on the surface. It is time for us to see the summary of today's lecture. In this lecture, we have seen the concepts of applications of Gauss law for the electric field due to a parallel charged sheets and the electric field due to charged spherical shell. And then we have discussed the case of where the excess charge resides as far as a conductor and an insulator. So, that we have seen, and finally, the application of Gauss law for the electric field due to charged conducting sphere and the electric field due to charged non-conducting sphere. The non-conducting sphere we called as the spherical charge distribution. It is time for us now to test our understanding of what we have learnt in this lecture. Discuss in detail the electric field due to a spherical shell and explain it with a graph. Explain where do the excess charge reside in a conductor and non-conductor and why. Use Gauss law to find the electric field E due to a charged conducting sphere and due to a charged non-conducting sphere. So, with this I would like to wind up this episode. Meet you in other episodes with the related concepts to Gauss law and its applications. Thank you for watching this lecture.